And we are live.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a show about EVE Online, a spaceship game. If you're watching us live on Twitch TV, we have a podcast version on talkinginstations.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We also have a YouTube hub with videos on demand at youtube.com/talkinginstations, all one word. My name is Carneros. I'm from the Bastion, and I'm your host today. I'm joined by two co-hosts and two guests. So let's introduce them each to you so you can hear their voice. First, there's Elise Randolph from Pandemic Legion.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Very happy to be on the show as always.
Excellent. Yes. And I'd like to introduce you to McLeod from the Initiative.
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. And our two guests today, Fonsui from Signal Cartel in the Eve Scout Enclave.
Good day, everyone. Good to see you again.
Thank you. And Torvald Uruz from Abyssal Lurkers.
Hey, good morning, everyone. How y'all doing?
Sorry, it's Abyss Lurkers, isn't it?
Abyssal Lurkers.
Abyssal Lurkers. Okay, got it. Great, thanks. So today we're going to talk about the Abyss Life, the Abyssal Life. We're going to talk about Abyssal content in EVE. We're going to give you a briefing from the start if you've never tried anything Abyssal yet, and set some context for you, but also dig in and answer your questions as we go. So let's start off with just like a basic overview. Fonsui, can you take us in?
Sure, thank you. So I got involved in the Abyss very, very early on. It was released in May of 2018, so it's been around for about a year, a little over a year and a half now. Actually, almost two. frankly. Wow, that's time flies. It's gone through only a few changes, so we may see some changes maybe the next year, hopefully. Please, CCP. The basic idea is that Abyss is some different kind of content, PvE content, than we have ever seen before. For one thing, there's a set of special lockdown solar systems that are set aside for Abyssal Dead Space. So effectively, this makes it instanced content. You utilize an item called a filament. This acts as a key, and it teleports your ship all alone to this solar system where you have to clear 3 separate rooms. There is a gate in each room. As you clear out each room fully, the gate unlocks and you're allowed to progress. You have 20 minutes in order to clear all 3 rooms, go through all 3 gates, at which point you are returned to the space from which you started. This can be done in any band of space. This can be done in high sec, in low sec, in null sec, in wormholes, anywhere you want. You will always come back to where you started. These keys are generally bought on the market, but the low tier keys, the keys that first get you in, are found by hacking data sites. Once you get the basic keys, you can use them and upgrade them and get from loot higher tier keys. The Abyss is split up into 5 levels of difficulty and 5 different weather effects that affect everything inside. So you have tier 1 through tier 5. The filament will indicate which tier it will send you to when you use it, and it will also indicate the type of weather you will find inside. All of the 5 weather effects have both a bonus and a penalty effect, and it applies to your ship, your drones, your missiles, and the enemies as well. Everything inside is affected by this. It is critical for success in order to take into account these weather effects and build your ship accordingly and shoot the right ammo at the enemies, do the right thing, etc. Every single weather has its own uniqueness about it that really behooves one to fly a specialized ship. That's the general overview. From there, we can... Sorry, Karner.
How easy is the rank 1?
So tier 1 is, I mean, in the end, once you are used to it and you are familiar with the content, not that tough at all. Especially, no. It can very easily be overpowered by a powerful ship. The rewards from that tier are extremely, extremely low. I generally describe tier 1 and tier 2 as pure training, and tier 3 is where you start to make a little bit of decent ISK. Tier 4 and tier 5 are where the real earning comes in. I describe tier 4 kind of as easy mode farming, and tier 5 as a little bit of try-hard farming. Despite the fact that tier 1 can be overpowered by a powerful ship, or is easy once you know it, doesn't mean that you won't die on your first time in. I guarantee Abyss will kill you if you've never done it before. It'll kill you, and it'll kill you a bunch of times before it stops killing you. And it may never stop killing you entirely. So I always recommend that people get their deaths out of the way as quickly as possible, with as cheap ships as possible. So I've published a number of fittings that are intended to kill you in the most educational way possible. Very basic ships. We're talking the entire ship build is anywhere from 2 to 4 million ISK, and I strongly recommend that people start with 10. They buy an entire pile of 10 of these ships. Don't buy them one at a time. Don't build them one at a time. You buy them and build them and set them up in the station, and you go out to die. And then as soon as you die, you ask yourself why you died and figure out how you can do better. Oh yeah, absolutely. This is fun because you're blowing 2 million ISK and you don't care, and you go again immediately. This desensitizes new players from the risk of loss. It frames it as a learning experience, and it actually does provide that learning. And it just so happens that this particular content, due to the way that the rats behave, their attributes, the weather, the locked-in nature, the timer, it is just demanding enough that it will teach you things that other PvE content will simply never teach you. So treating tier 1 and tier 2 as essentially training tiers and using extremely inexpensive ships in these creates a better pilot very quickly. I have guided directly quite a few players through this process, and by the time they get through to the end, I find that they are well-balanced, adjusted EVE pilots ready to dive into PvP, ready to dive into higher-end PvE. They are desensitized to the loss. They know when to expect it. They know that they need to analyze their losses to discover what the cause was and how to get better. Abyss has created a better pilot for EVE Online.
One of the neat things, if you've never done it before, so when Fonsui says there are like missions and gates and there's like different weather effects. So if you've only done missions as your PvE thing or like exploration sites, you probably think like, oh, it's going to be the same site every time. I can just figure out the formula to it. No. That's not how it works at all. They're kind of like dynamic, the NPCs. So each room is a little bit different every time you go into it. You don't know exactly what to expect, right? So there might be 2 of the NPCs that you're worried about, or there might be 0, there might be 5. So you have to, every time you go in, you have to like assess what's going on, assess the spawn you got, and react from there. So that's why it kind of teaches you to be, as Fonsui was saying, like a better pilot. I got a friend recently into EVE Online, and he gets apparently the tutorial gives you a calm dark filament. And he was like, okay, this is easy. I was like, it's actually kind of not easy. He was like, no, it's easy. They gave me in the tutorial. It's got to be easy. He went in and died instantly.
I have done this.
So
I have done that myself.
I'm guessing he had a ship and not missiles, huh?
Yeah, he took a mauler into a calm dark, and he just couldn't track anything.
Oh yeah. What Elise is describing is the fact that there are 5 basic spawns that you can get in each room, and each spawn has each room that you enter has a number of points to spend, and that determines the ships that will spawn. And it's semi-random within a given range. So you will not get. This is not a mission where you warp in and there's these rats with these exact names in the same quantities. They spawn in the same locations. You know exactly what to do. It's not like a mission. It's not like a sleeper site. You're going to jump into the room, and you don't know if you're going to fight the Vigilant Tyrannos in that room, which has sleepers and drifters and seekers. You don't know if you're going to fight the Navka Overmines, which are a bunch of rogue drones. Sometimes they have a battleship. Sometimes they have battle cruisers that do 1,000 damage every 5 seconds. You don't know if you're going to fight the Svarog Clade and their Leshaks. You don't know if you're going to fight the Perun Clade and their Damavix and Vedmax. You don't know, and you don't know the E-War that these individual rats are going to spawn with. All of this has to be sized up from your overview on the fly within seconds of entering the room. You have to eyeball that overview, figure out the tactics that you're going to use, figure out how you're going to get into and out of that room in time safely, and be waiting on the gate when it unlocks when the last rat dies. That is everyone's job. I think I didn't clarify earlier. The timer for this is 20 minutes. You have 3 rooms to clear in those 20 minutes. You have to clear the room to proceed to the next. That means that on average, a room should take no longer than 6 minutes and 40 seconds. So since you can get the same spawn in the first room as the second as the third, if any individual type of spawn takes you over 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and you get that spawn more than once, then you will run out of time, and your ship will be destroyed, and your pod will be destroyed. That is very demanding. I find that I watch players dawdle. They sit on the gate. They go fly all over the place. They're used to missions, which can be completed very casually in your own time. All you have to do is complete it. You can warp off. You can come back. Not here. You have 20 minutes. You can't leave.
Yeah. Now, to kind of steer away from the scary side of this, Fonsui was talking about you're going to die and you're going to all that. For those of you who are afraid to do this alone, there's actually an option to do this with other people. So after the release of the Abyssal Space, CSP introduced the Frigate sites where you're able to do the exact same stuff that you're able to do with cruisers, but with up to 3 frigates, so you can bring friends with you. And it's actually one of the best learning tools. It's really good income for those who master it. But I feel like the best feature about it is to be able to go in there with other people. So you can go in there with 2 of your friends who know what they're doing, and they can actually point out, hey, this rat does this environment does this, and they can kind of show you how it works. So that way you don't have to go in by yourself and kind of take this huge, scary Abyssal dead space on your, by yourself. You can learn with friends. So it's one of the cool things about it. So don't be discouraged. You can find people to do this with if you're not one of those people who want to just dive in and risk dying by yourself.
Yeah, we actually had an episode of Talking Stations that where Silver and Artemis Urbosa and Ron did it themselves. In actual fact, I'm going to quickly just transition over to that, but like it's pretty good, especially for making friends, especially for like, you know, sort of solidifying those initial sort of, you know, bonds of friendship, that kind of thing. Even if whether you're friends already or whether these are like, you know, fairly new people that you've met online, you know.
Yeah, one of the best things you can do when someone asks, you know, about Abyssal sites is, you know what? Here's a kestrel, here's a hook bill. Come with me, I'll show you what it's about, and I'll show you how these things work. Like I said, such a good feature to teach people this scary aspect of Eve, because, you know, you hear this 20-minute timer, you hear battleships, variation, newts, scrams, webs, and you're like, not for me. But yeah, it's definitely a cool feature to teach people.
Yeah, we probably buried the lead a little bit. Like, we were talking about how spooky the Abyss is and how challenging it is and taxing it is. It's actually quite, like, it's really, really fun to do once you like get the hang of it. I was talking to when the Abyss first came out. It was actually the last fan fest in Iceland that was there. I was talking to, I believe it was CCP Siegel at the time, and she was like, "Yeah, these things are going to be really cool. It's like the idea that we want for PvE. Imagine like right now if we tried to put just level 4 missions in the game, like these super formulaic basic things that are relatively safe. You can't harass anyone in them, and just how the players would just absolutely hate that idea, right? So like PvE and missions and level 4s and stuff are level 3s and 4s are very much kind of, I don't want to say a thing of the past for CCP, but it's definitely they realized that there needed to be a more challenging PvE environment, and these are definitely it. And you know, PvPers can have fun in them. I run them all the time. I remember the first time I ran one, it was kind of in the very beginning, and I was like, I'll do a level 4. Died instantly, and then it made me mad. So I was like, okay, I'll find a fit that'll work in this one level 4 site, and I took it, and I had to like kite out and like kind of feather. I don't want to say feather because I don't do that, but I tried to feather and like mitigate some incoming damage to get it, and it felt like I was in a PvP fight. It actually gave me like the same shakes that I got in PvP.
Yeah, it teaches you things that you'll never learn in missions. I mean, you've been playing this game. You're pretty well-versed PvP pilot. I've been playing for 10 years, and there's things in the Abyss that I'm learning about all the time. Like, oh, that'll help a lot. And then, you know, you can take that knowledge to PvP and, you know, missions. You just sit there with your battleship and kill everything. Abyssals, you're actually piloting. You're trying to mitigate damage. You're trying to prioritize targets. And yeah, I believe, like you were saying with the missions, this is dynamic PvE that kind of transitions Eve PvE from being a tedious job to fun, interactive gameplay. You know, something you can actually enjoy, you know, be excited to log in and do, rather than, okay, let's do damsel in distress for the 10 millionth time, right?
Sure.
I will say there is one mechanic. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off again, but there is one mechanic that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. There is an arena edge to the Abyss. So if you try and kite a little bit too much, you'll go outside and you don't instantly explode once you hit there. There are these like red crosses, and it's over your face, and you take like increasing damage the further and further you get out.
Yeah, you've experienced that.
Yes.
Let me just warn you: do not orbit with a micro warp drive in a frigate. Don't orbit an NPC in a frigate with a micro warp drive. Just know that. Sitting
immediately outside the boundary in a cruiser is a tactic, and I've watched Torvald use it. He'll tell you all about that in a minute. I just wanted to review talk a little bit more about the frigate experience as opposed to the cruiser experience. You can bring 1, 2, or 3 frigates together in one of these sites. You can fly one of them, you can fly 2 of them, or you can fly 3 yourself with different characters. You can bring your friends that you already know. You can bring your real life friends that haven't played Eve yet. Or you can meet people in Eve that you haven't already met. This is a fantastic system for group gameplay. The only difference between these sites when you take one cruiser or the 3 frigates is there's 2 specific differences. Number 1, you take a stack of 3 filaments to get in instead of a single filament. Number 2, so each room has one main loot can. That's where effectively all the loot is in these sites. When you take a frigate in, that loot can has triple the amount of loot in each room. So you pay 3 filaments to get in, you get 3 times the loot out, and you bring up to 3 ships in there. And the CCP has essentially equated the power of 3 frigates to the power of 1 cruiser, and it for the most part works out that way. It's obviously the play style has to be different. Frigates rely a lot more on your piloting, on where how you're moving, where you're moving, etc. It's more difficult for them to apply. You have to be the ranges are very different. It's definitely a more intense experience for the individual compared to a cruiser, but it is very rewarding and doesn't have to be challenging. It doesn't have to be scary. You can do low tier with your friends and bring overpowered ships that aren't even all that expensive. There are a lot of cheese sort of fittings that utilize regeneration or rely on the weather to reduce your damage taken. There's a very popular composition that uses micro warp drive hawks in a dark site. These things barely get hit. It's really good for touring the abyss and getting the feel of it without having all of the danger on you. So there's a lot of configurability in the challenge. The challenge can be all the way down at nothing, or the challenge can be all the way up where you have guys like Urschlag who take 300, 400, 500 million-isk cruisers into tier 5 where they have no business being. And sometimes they win and sometimes they lose, but fun is always had.
All right. Now, if you put 3 filaments in your hold, then do you have to go back, dock up, and get 3 more next time? Because if you had a stack in your hold, it would consume them all.
So if you go in with a cruiser, it only takes 1. You could have a stack of 100; it will only consume 1. If you have that same stack of 100 and you're in a frigate, then it will only consume 3 each time you go in. That said, consider if you are sure that you're going to come out, or sure enough that you're going to come out, you can carry a couple of filaments on you. But if you're going in the training ships that are meant to die, then it is a good idea to just bring the 1 or as many as you need to enter one site and dock up afterwards. I personally, when I do cruiser runs, I will try to chain 5 of them. Based on, I'll bring enough ammo for 5, enough pace for 5, and I have enough cargo for 5 sites worth of loot. I'll bring 5 filaments, run 5 sites, dock up, empty out, reload, do it again.
Okay. Now, do you get loyalty points with these bad guys?
All of the reward is from the loot cans. There is 1 main loot can per room that is right next to the gate that has all the good stuff in it. There are also a couple of distributed, very, very small cans that have just a few materials and the ISK token that's a red item called Triglavian Survey Database that is functionally equivalent to like Sleeper Blue loot or Overseer's personal effects, where they are bought from an NPC order for a fixed amount. They're worth 100,000 ISK a piece. You get a pile of them. The higher your tier, the more you get. So the main loot can has all the fun stuff. It has the keys, the filaments. It has the mutaplasmas that let you mutate items. It has the materials for building things. It has the red loot, the Triglavian survey databases. It has blueprints for all the things that you can make out of the abyss. All that fun stuff there, and the skill books for the Triglavian ships and weapons. That comes from the main can. From the little extra cans, which are called extraction node and extraction subnode, those little cans drop only the 2 building materials, crystalline isogen 10 and 0 point condensate, and a little bit of the Triglavian survey databases. So people will be tempted to go and fly way, way out there, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 kilometers to get these little cans. And sometimes it's worth it and sometimes it's not. And that depends on your play style and your skill and the tier you're in and the ship you're in and all of those things. Generally speaking, though, it is usually wise to just go for the main can unless you know exactly what you're doing to get the other ones.
Okay. Now, you've described plenty of risks inside the site. How much risk is there for outside the site? Now,
Torvald, what are you talking about that?
When you go on this, right? Can you do it from a tether on a Keepstar? No, right?
You must be 1,000 kilometers away from anything anchored in order to activate a filament, which, by the way, and I'm kind of going to give away some secret sauce here. What people will sometimes do is they will keep So, okay, you know what? Let me rewind. Firstly, I'll describe the scenario from the outside as opposed to from the inside. We already know what happens inside. You click the thing, you disappear from space. You go to a dedicated solar system where no one can touch you, and then you come back to exactly where you started when you're done. But what does it look like for the people on the outside? When you enter an abyssal dead space site, you leave behind what is called an abyssal trace. This trace is visible when you're on grid with it. It can be descanned, and it can be combat scanned. So if there are people in your solar system who are looking for you for where you came from, either in wormhole space or known space, they can scan down your trace and sit on it and wait for you to leave. A common tactic is for people to keep an extra tier 1 calm filament in their cargo, so that when they jump out, if there's a bunch of NATOs waiting for them, then you just jump back in a tier 1 and wait 20 minutes and hope that they're gone, and rinse and repeat. If those people that are waiting for you have dropped the mobile depot and anchored it, you can no longer enter an abyssal site from that spot anymore, and you're stuck there on grid with them. So Torvald can tell you a little bit more about ganking and how to get out of it, or how to not get out of it.
Yeah, so if you're running sites in and around Jita, that's a very popular spot for ganks. You'll come out, people specifically look for those traces, and if they can tell what tier you're running by the outside trace. They can actually tell if you're running a high tier or low tier. And typically, if they see a high tier, they know there's going to be typically a blingy ship. So some of the things you can do to mitigate that is stay away from Jita, stay away from popular places, run way outside of that. A lot of people have gotten ganked. It is quite a popular thing to do because they drop blingy mods and whatnot. Other things you do, there's tricks with orcas you can do with like storing your ship in the maintenance bay or in the hold there. But yeah, your best bet is just to stay away from Jita doing it. Streamers can kind of have a hard time with that because people see what you're running and where you're running, so they can so that's a different topic. But yeah, I would just advise people don't run them in Jita or around Jita within 3 jumps of Jita.
Well, you can run them in Jita if your ship costs less than the NATOs it will take to kill it, yeah. or if you don't care. But if you care, or your ship is expensive and you run it in Jita, you are very likely to lose it, or anywhere near there. You're very likely to lose it. The safest place in the entire game to run your expensive ships is in a wormhole where you rolled all the doors shut before you started and you have scouts everywhere.
So we're talking oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say we actually have a clip of from your Twitch, in actual fact, Torvald, of you just barely escaping an actual gank, right?
Go for it.
That's
so
fantastic.
We'll watch that, and like you guys can carry on talking about that while that plays.
Sweet. Let me relive this horror.
Well, I think that what we should talk about now is the PvP room, which Torvald is an expert on and kind of bases his content around. He's run tournaments in there. He's been flying it alone forever and a day, and he doesn't do it the way everyone else does it, and he makes it interesting and fun. So I would like to hear what he has to say about that.
I like you said expert there. I like that. I'm an expert at it. One of the best.
You are, man. You see things. You see things happen in that room, like the way the lights flash and the way the timers look and all that stuff. You've done these hundreds of times. This is your thing, so you just run with that.
All right. So first of all, an introduction to Abyssal PVP. So when you're running Abyssal sites, if you're in a tier 3 or higher, there'd be a chance, depending on the population of people actually running sites, there'd be a proving conduit at the end. And this is very important. If you're not interested in PvP, you better be listening to this because this is important for you too. So that proving conduit actually takes you to an arena, and that arena is basically a proving grounds. It's the Triglavians want us to prove ourselves to them. So you go in this giant sphere. Upon entering the proving grounds, you go in this giant sphere. There's a loot cache in the center and an origin conduit. And if nobody's waiting for you, you will start the timer on the loot cache, and it'll start counting down from 5 minutes. And if someone else enters before that timer hits 0, you've got yourself a one-on-one fight to the death. The overall time in the room is 30 minutes. So if you hit that 30-minute mark, if you both can't kill each other, you'll both explode. You're both out. Winner obviously gets the loot of the person they kill and the loot of the cache. So there's a little box in there. It's the loot from that isn't much. It can be anywhere from 5 million ISK, and I've seen up to 200 million ISK. So it's kind of not worth it. It's more about the fight itself, but that is the overall basics of the Proving Conduit. There's a lot of dynamic in there it's a 1v1, so there's only so much you can do with ships and, the way the meta evolves and whatnot. But typically you'll see Ikitursas, Cerberuses, Orthruses. Curses are very powerful, but I haven't seen much of them recently. But yeah, that is a lot lately. There's been a lot of accidental, and this is what I was talking about. If you don't do PvE, pay attention. That gate will kill you. So if you're running Abyssal sites, when you're in the very end, you see an Origin Conduit and a Proving Conduit, complacency will kill you in the Abyss. It don't matter if you've run a million, complacency will kill you. And if you're not paying attention to the gate you approach, you'll end up on the Abyssal kill board to some Ikitursa or Cerb or something like that. So pay attention. I've killed many Gilas on active.
The wrong gate Gila is Torvald's bread and butter.
Yeah, they're a fun target.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the meta that we're going to see in the Abyss PvP, like the kind of ships that people are flying, why they fly those, what beats them, what doesn't beat them, and kind of how you do your thing, because you do it a little differently than most other players that are involved in this.
Yeah, so I have to focus on not using expensive stuff because I stream. I don't take any precautions to prevent people from stream sniping. There's a couple guys who are genius with it and they pull it off. Me, I click the button and stuff. But I have to do cheap ships, and I do cheap effective ships that actually work unless you're coming up against the really expensive stuff. But the meta revolves around Ikitursa mainly. There's some counters to it, but there's expensive Ikitursas, there's cheap Ikitursas. And luckily with Surgical Strike recently, we saw there's been a little bit of a change where we saw the Deimos come in, but the top ships overall, King of the Abyss is the Ikitursa. There's also Cerberuses, Orthruses.
So why is the Ikitursa so dominant?
It's just, man, in EVE, in the universe, it has its drawbacks. An open universe, there's so many drawbacks to it that it can be countered. But when you're locked in a 150 kilometer arena with this bad boy, man, this thing's capacitor, its tank, its weapon system, the damage on the Ikitursa, the typical damage from the typical Abyssal PvP fit Ikitursa gets up to around 2,000. If that's a shield fit Ikitursa, which is a thing, you can see that get up even higher. If it's a really, really tanked out Ikitursa, it gets maybe 1,300 DPS, but there's no cruiser that can tank a full, maximum ramped up Ikitursa. So that, there's some couple options there, but overall, it's just the damage ramp up. So if you can't kill the Ikitursa, if you can't bring it down, that damage is going to ramp up, and it's going to hurt. After the 8-minute mark, I didn't mention this earlier. So after 8 minutes in the arena, so once the second person enters, 8 minutes from that moment in time, there's a penalty debuff actually. So everybody, both players inside and drones and all, will get a 25% penalty to all resistances. So armor, shield, hull, all that. And it applies to drones as well.
Sounds like Surgical Strike.
Oh man, it is.
This is where they tested it.
Yeah, Surgical Strike has been a really cool shakeup to the whole thing. Deimoses are actually a lot more popular because you can get Deimoses up to 1,000, 1,200 DPS, 1,300 DPS. They're monsters, and that's the kind of DPS you need to pump out to be able to kill an Ikitursa. The Rapid Light Serbs, those things are absolutely dominating Abyss, but it revolves around playing with the Ikitursa. Everything, the focal point's the Ikitursa. That ship is it's the easy go-to ship. There's expensive options, there's cheap options. Yeah.
So what else are we going to see that it is successful, and what have you seen that is not successful, and what do you enjoy flying the most?
All right, I will go ahead and say my favorite ship as of lately has been the Phantasm, and it is the most ineffective ship. However, the recent Surgical Strike update has increased the damage of the Phantasm to where I've actually gotten Ikitursas down to 40% armor, so it's been pretty cool getting them that low.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I put the Phantasm in the background, dude. That's one.
I know. I saw that and I was like, yes.
40, getting him down to 40% armor does not represent a success. You're dead.
I know. That's
Horseshoes and hand grenades.
That's why it's sad. But with the Phantasm, I've killed all kinds of things with the Phantasm. I've never killed an Iki Terza with a Phantasm. I've gotten close and 40% armor. Even though that's not a win, I still died. I'll take that as a victory. But yeah, Phantasm should never kill an Iki Terza, but it could be possible. Some effective ships. I know I was talking about the Phantasm. It's ineffective. You're like, what the hell? But some effective ships. The Orthrus, I would say, is one of the best ships for Abyssal PvP. It is in the sense that it's the cheapest. This is one, when everyone asks me to go into Abyssal PvP, I tell them the Orthrus. And I feel like I might be setting them up for failure by not explaining it more, but the Orthrus is the cheapest one that can actually get the best results. The Orthrus has a record of killing all the ships. Curses, Iki Terzas, Cerberuses, Deimoses. Really burst damage out of that thing. It's the name of the game with the Orthrus is kiting. So you just got to stay away, keep damage on, maximum damage. I mean, you're going to get 1,000 DPS out of that thing with heat and drugs and implants and all that. But I always point people towards the Orthrus for the easy thing. The Deimos, you can get a pretty cheap Deimos. Sadly, most of the higher end Abyssal PvPers, they use really expensive stuff. So it is hard. They are extremely skilled and knowledgeable, and they've got a lot of ISK invested in their stuff. But, there are some pretty cheap options that actually work. And those are a couple examples.
So one of the reasons we're talking about the Abyss is because there's a Skillers in the Abyss event going on right now, which you basically get skill points for accomplishing certain things in the Abyss. So it's kind of drawing a lot of new attention to it. If like someone's trying to start this out and they're listening to this show, they're like, holy shit, I'm just going to die over and over. I don't want to do it. So what are some of the rewards for doing this? Like, why do you do this? What drew you to becoming like an Abyssal Master, I guess?
Really, man, I'll be honest. Before Abyssals, and I was talking about this earlier, PvE and Eve is not the most exciting thing. I've had a couple of real life friends get into Eve and they've tried it and they're just like, I don't like, this is boring. And I'm like, I understand that. Abyss is dynamic PvE, really exciting stuff that I'm actually excited to log in and do this. And not only that, but it pays well. You want to log into a game and sometimes you don't want to, you just want to relax and play a game rather than do fleets or any of that. And the Abyss is kind of the perfect escape where it's the timing is perfect. You don't have to put in a lot of effort or focus into, running a fleet or setting up some of the other, wormhole PvE or incursions. Just kind of one of those things I can, if I have 20 minutes, I can log in and do an Abyssal site and it's interactive. It's good money depending on what site you do. So it's like the perfect system for me. Whereas other PvE, like I said, missions, man, there's other things in this game where I want to make money, but I get really discouraged from doing them because I just I want to fall asleep at the keyboard. But Abyssals and, I said earlier, complacency will kill you. While Abyssals, some people say they AFK them and whatnot, you really can't. You've got to be on your game. You've got to be paying attention. You got to be picking the correct targets, because picking the wrong target, and I've had this happen. You go into that site and you start focusing on the wrong target, you will die. It'll kill you and we're talking about the higher tier stuff. So, I've had people come to me with fits that I've made videos on and tested, and they said, hey, this doesn't work. And I'm like, no, it does work. You just gotta, this ain't a mission, man. You gotta go in there and you gotta you gotta be paying attention and flying correctly. But yeah, and then Abyssal PvP, what drew me to that is, you ever been roaming? You ever just wanted to go screw around on your own and you get 30 dudes dropped on you and it just kind of, you just kind of get discouraged?
Never.
You ever have that happen?
He's always the one dropping 30 people on people.
when there's a moment, I think I can bullet point the draws for Abyss if you'd like.
Oh yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So if I had to bullet point it and just run down a really brief list, I think that you have the configurable challenge. You can tune it to be extremely, just wallop it with a ship that doesn't care, or you can tune it to be super punishing and likely to kill you, or even definitely going to kill you. So there's the configurable challenge. That's bullet point number 1. Bullet point number 2 is the training capability that it has. This is the most challenging PvE content for an individual player or a small group of players. Nothing prepares players for PvP better. And I want to be clear, this is not PvP. I'm not saying it replaces it or anything, but you will find that a player jumping into PvP from here will be very, very capable. A third bullet point is the all-you-can-eat aspect of it. It is undock and go. You have everything set up. You don't have to do any prep work. There's very little cleanup after, and it's all you can eat. You just get a stack of filaments and you go for it. All you need is the ammo, the filaments, the paste. So it's the combination of the no prep, all you can eat, the training, and the configurable challenge that really really draw people to this.
And when it comes to the sorry.
Okay, you got 20 minutes to go in this site, clear 3 rooms, and jump through either the right gate or the wrong gate. This is what I heard, right? And then people always talk about Abyssal Lore. How much storyline do you get in one of these sites? None?
Well, so Ashtarothi would be the best to talk about this, but in his stead, I will attempt to do it a little bit of justice.
I mean, are the NPCs all giving monologues while you're shooting them?
No. So the story is not shoved in your face. It is made accessible to you by engaging in this content. You can read about it. It's all in text. We got the original set of lore story from the Triglavian Trinary data stream items that came when you fed the cache, the red loot. When you took the surveys and you approached the cache, and instead of blowing it up, you interacted with it, you were able to feed surveys into it, and it would spit out these little cans that had these little Triglavian communications in them that you could read. And you can read these, on the web. You don't have to get the item in game. You can actually just look up the item in the game, in the market, and just read it. They don't force you to go through the content in order to enjoy the story of the content. But if you do know about the content, if you did read the story and you are up on what's happening, then doing the sites and doing the invasion content as well, which we're not going to get into right now, is extremely rewarding.
Like, not gonna lie, I am actually streaming showing the invasion trailers. So, like, that worked perfectly. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very engaging on the story end, and the important part in the end of this story is that they are from all we can tell, the Triglavians are from the Jove. That they're a splinter faction. We don't know exactly who they are. There's a lot of theories about that I won't get into. But the Triglavians and the Drifters are both splinters from the Jove. They're created by the Jove. And what CCP is doing here is they are wrapping up the precursor storyline. We have had this ghost of the Jovian Empire hanging over us for 17 years now, and we don't know a whole lot about them. They're still pretty mysterious. They're not here anymore. They don't have a direct impact on our gameplay. They're not really generating a lot of story, so why are they here? And this is giving us the answer, as much answers as we're going to get about who they were, what happened, and what happens now when this is resolved. That's the end of this story, and that is being told currently through the 3-chapter invasion story, of which we have just entered the 3rd chapter.
Okay, so the Triglavians, the Drifters, the Sleepers, and then the nice Jove that came and gave us Concord Tech. Those are all 4 versions of Jove, and they all hate each other?
To put it in a nutshell, which doesn't do it justice, but essentially, we don't know what the schism was that made the Triglavians not like the Jove anymore, how they ended up where they are. The Drifters, the Sleepers are Jove. The Sleepers are old Jove that are still left, and the Drifters are AI that came to rise within the virtual world that the Sleepers created for themselves and that they live in, like the Matrix. We don't know if the Drifters were made there or coalesced on their own from all the sleepers' darkest dreams. We don't know their origin. We just know where they came from. We know that they came from the construct. We know that the sleepers are Jovian, and we know that the Triglavians are Jovian as well. And the original Jove themselves are effectively gone.
Yeah, they all tried to escape some sort of cataclysmic event in sort of that, isn't really known. And they all kind of like splinter groups decided to escape it in different ways, shapes, and forms. And that's where we get all these various different types of precursor kind of groups.
Yeah, this is the wrap up of the precursor crisis. And this is one of the first times that CCP is actually wrapping up a big story. This is very exciting. We've been promised completions of stories before, and it's kind of never happened, and now it is. So I am very much on board. I want to see what happens here.
So I want to shift gears real quick. Although the story is fascinating, and you are right, the Sanchez incursions have been going on for a decade, and we still don't know what's going on with those. But when it comes to PvP in the Abyss, I look at Torvald, I look at your kill board, and you're getting like 6 or 7 kills a day, and all the kills are obviously 1v1s. So it's a pretty awesome way to get that 1v1 content. But you also had a PvP event in the Abyss, is that right?
Yeah, so and you, Elise, I feel like you're the perfect person to chat with about this. The Alliance tournament is one of the greatest things in EVE history, hands down. And when I first got into the Abyss and Abyssal PvP, I went to the Proving Grounds and I was like, this is the foundation for a tournament. We've literally got the building blocks for some kind of tournament style gameplay just through this. And after a couple months, I finally got the idea, why not try and organize some kind of way to get people into Abyssal PvP, to see if we can get some guys in there to try and break the big dudes and just get more people interested, and, maybe get more eyes on Abyssal PvP from the rest of the community and even CCP. And so I started the tournament back in mid-April. I hosted a tournament. There was a total of about 18 billion as prizes, and it was my first time ever doing anything like that. I was, hate to say it, I was winging it because I, just wanted to see how it would work. And I learned a lot from that first tournament. And I told everyone it would be a great success to me if in one day I saw at least 40 kills in Abyssal PvP. And in the first day we had about 43, 44 kills, which was great. And I really learned a lot about kind of how I was going to do it, because it was basically just, whoever got the most kills, whoever destroyed the most amount of ISK. Needless to say, one guy got 15 billion ISK from this tournament, and a couple others got a few billion as well. But I've learned how to kind of curve that so I can, increase interest, so people aren't just going to be like, I don't want to try because, that guy's going to win. And, so there's going to be more.
Do you ban Ikitursas like you do in an Alliance tournament? Because it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, you get 75% Ikitursas.
See, I thought about that, and I thought about just outright banning the Ikitursa. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come up with a point system. I'm going to have some kind of point system. That way, the guy who gets 50 kills in an Ikitursa isn't going to win. So that way the guy who gets 30 kills in an Orthrus or 20 kills in an Orthrus, that guy, So it's still a work in progress. The next tournament, still figuring out the point system. I'm on to something with some help from some awesome people who have, stepped forward, given me ideas. But there's more to be built off of it. But yeah, my hope, when I first jumped, like I said, when I first jumped in, I saw that tournament style gameplay opportunity. I'm like, this is it. This is going to be it. It's great that we've got, groups out there like the 5v5 scrims and EVE CS trying to do this tournament stuff. But man, we've got the foundation for what the players need to do their own tournaments and have this. So, a lot of opportunity. People have been asking for 3v3 Frig stuff. We've got Frigate Abyssals, and there's cruisers that can go in. So why not open up that up to Frigs, and so much opportunity there. But that's my initial goal with the Abyssal PvP, is to get more people in there, get more eyes on it, get more stuff destroyed. This skilling event has put a lot of people into the Abyss. If you look down the Abyssal PvP kill board, there are a lot of Gilas. But there's been a lot of people in Abyssal PvP lately because they're taking the wrong gate, or they're seeing this Proving Conduit and they're interested. So we're building something here. Something's happening. It's just, we'll see how it unfolds with this next quadrant coming up this year, if they expand off of it.
Well, I think a lot of people, just really quickly, I think a lot of people kind of look to this sort of thing and wonder whether it's going to be like an ISK positive adventure or an ISK negative adventure, right? Like, I mean, can you talk to that in any way, shape, or form, like your experiences?
So the PvE portion is obviously it's a gold mine. I mean, whether depending on how you look at it, but you're talking, everyone can argue numbers, but the PvE portion is a great source of income, whether you're running T5s and cruisers or frigates, or you're running tier 3s. It actually competes with other aspects of the game in the sense that it makes good money. The PvP portion is really good money if you're good and you win. If you're,
I've seen some of those. Yeah, I've seen some of your wins on that. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's where I talk about the Phantasm again. That little 200 million ISK Phantasm has made me billions of ISK in Gilas and Serbs and all kinds of other ships. My actual numbers, it's almost. I've been doing this for a year. I have numbers.
Yeah, but that also
here.
includes you losing a bunch of Ikatersas in all ways and shapes and sizes. Right?
Yeah, I've killed 176. I've died 181 times. I've destroyed 102 billion ISK, and I've lost 87 billion. Maybe my numbers aren't the best to go off of. There are guys who make a lot of money in Abyssal PvP, and it's insane the amount of money you can pull out of this. But again, you got to be good, and you got to fly the right ship, and hopefully get the right fight.
I remember when it first started, like people were kind of figuring out trying to min-max it at the PvP or PvP portion of it. And there were two people who kind of rose to the top. And I think one of them is still doing it. And he's probably like, I don't know if he's like the kingpin of the PvP zone, but it's Sniper Bros 15, who I know you have like crazy interactions with on the regular.
Yeah.
Would you say that he's kind of like the king? He's kind of figured out what to do. He's the top dog.
Yeah, there's him and two others that just dominate Abyssal PvP, and it is insane. But Sniper Bros, I mean, I on this site that I use to track, or that's used to track all the Abyssal PvP stuff. He was number one, but the formula changed. But he has over 1,000 kills and almost 1 trillion ISK destroyed. It is insane, but
1 trillion ISK destroyed in the PvP room by one dude?
Yes, hold on, let me
Actually, it's quite a bit more than 1 trillion because the Abyssal mod values are 0. And he kills a lot of those.
Yeah, he was the one who won the 15 billion ISK from the tournament. He had in that tournament in one weekend, he had 30-something kills and he destroyed 70 billion ISK in that one.
Wow.
Again, excluding the value of the Abyssal mods, which could be hundreds of millions to billions.
Okay, here's the numbers right here. 1,031 kills, 61 losses. And I'm not sure what's not included based off what's not on Z-Kill or stalemates or anything of that, but he has destroyed 945 billion ISK, and he's only lost 75.8 billion.
In the scope of things, he's just basically soloed 12 Titans worth of ISK. That is absolutely mind-boggling. I had no idea how much money was in these things.
Yeah,
just soloing a Titan with my main.
I would say the numbers are probably 33 to 50% higher than what you see because of the Abyssal mods.
Yeah, I would definitely say it. There are Abyssal mods. I mean, some of these, for example, there's a kill a couple days ago where an Ikatersa died, and it looked like a typical Ikatersa, but it had an entropic radiation sink that was Zorya's, and that was worth, I believe, 6 billion ISK. And when
that's
you
the
look
officer
at
gun.
Yeah, or this was the officer damage module in the low slot. He was using a faction, the faction gun, and then the officer damage module. And yeah, we see all these losses in the Abyss, and they're all, the data from the Abyssal rolled modules are not calculated correctly. So I imagine it's a lot more than that. But yeah, and a lot of people going into the tournament said, why am I going to try? Because I've got this guy who's got billions of ISK in his ship. And while that's true, skill plays a part in it. Like these guys don't just, a couple of these guys made all their money from Abyssal PvP, just being skilled PvPers and winning these fights and getting more modules and building themselves up. And, I've talked to a couple of them, and they come away from a weekend of Abyssal PvP with billions of ISK worth of goods, and obviously they're going to put that right back in their ship. But not only are these guys got a lot of money in their ship, but they're extremely skilled and they're really good. And my hope with the tournament was that some people would come in here and be like, nah, I can shut that dude down, he ain't nothing. But it did not happen. So hopefully we get some people in there willing to try it, though. I ain't got the skill for it.
Wild. So I was also watching Lucy Lou stream. He streams on iBeast on Twitch and YouTube, and he also goes in there. You're talking about like people that are at the top end of PvP, and eventually they're gonna crash into one another, right? Like, what happens when that sort of when that rock hits the hard plate?
Oh man, it a lot of rock paper scissors, luck, skill. Like you can watch some of these guys, they stream it. There's a couple of the top guys, they've got communications with each other, so they make sure they don't run into each other. There's a couple of them that really don't like each other, so they're actively hunting. Man, there's a little dynamic here. It's funny because they actually they will watch Z kill and see when they're running and what they're running, and they'll try and go after it. And it's crazy. I mean, the sniping part of it it's funny to watch and hear these guys talk about it, because you'll see, this guy, he got this kill with this ship, so I went in with this ship, but I didn't run into him, and then he had his ult in this ship, and it's crazy, man. It's it's very complicated.
There's actually there's a very extreme sort of hunting opportunity that is sometimes available in Abyss PvP. Every once in a while, an owner of an Alliance tournament ship will take it into Abyss PvP. The last time that I saw this happen, Torvald knows what I'm talking about. The last time I saw this happen, someone was flying a Fiend. I believe it was Rengas was flying a Fiend.
Yep.
And he was predictable about it. He flew at the same time when he did it, and you could kind of tell his fitting. And no one beat him. No one was ever able to kill his ship. But actually, someone successfully timed him out. Someone successfully made it so that he couldn't kill them, and they ran out the 30-minute timer, and his ship died.
Yep, there was a guy, his name's Malengo in game. He ran into that Fiend with an Iki Tursa, and the Fiend pilot offered him, I can't remember if it was 10 or 20 billion ISK to let the Fiend kill the Iki Tursa, because ransoming is a thing in Abyssal PvP, by the way. The Fiend pilot offered him 10, 20 billion ISK, something crazy, to let him go. And Malengo said, nope, I want to be the guy that causes the death of a Fiend. And so they 30 minutes, they could not kill each other. So that Fiend, and the unfortunate part, there's no kill mail, but it was verified through, the way Malengo verified it with me was through, he showed the combat log. And, I don't know if he put that anywhere. The Fiend pilot never posted the kill mail. He never showed anyone the kill mail, but the only verification I ever got was he showed the time log of, you see the damage going back and forth in the combat log, and then you see the Abyssal Depths claim them. So
that's amazing.
Single module.
Yeah,
every single module on that ship. Yeah, every single module on that Fiend that was capable of being Abyss rolled with a mutaplasmid was rolled. If it could have been an officer mod, it was. The reports were that 3 trillion had been spent building that Fiend.
Oh, that's hilarious! God. And I love the storyline of. He's offering a ransom to get out. He'll pay anything to get out of here with the ship alive. And the guy's like, I would rather die than get any sum of money and take you with me. That's like the most quintessential Eve thing, chaotic.
I gave that guy my Iki Tursa Eve Vegas skin for that. I was like, man, you lost your ship and the bounty just to kill that Fiend. Here's the Iki Tursa skin from Vegas. You deserve this. But ransoming is a thing. So many things come up when you're not thinking about it. Ransoming is a thing in Abyssal PvP, and 30 minutes, both people die. So one of the things that we've seen, a couple people have tried this. There's actually a guy I knew a while ago. He would run around in a caracal, and he would try and ransom people. And he actually ransomed the company. I think he made like 2 or 3 billion ISK out of a caracal. He's lost countless caracals, but he made 2 or 3 billion ISK by ransoming people in caracals. He would.
Suetonia was the pioneer of that tactic. He started doing it when the Abyss PvP was still on the test.
It's an insane. I mean, when you think about it, I have people try and do it to me all the time, and I don't really think about things. So I'm just like, nope, we're both blown up. I ain't giving you anything. Earth's like he'll do it on his stream all the time, where he tries to stalemate people and get money. It's an actual tactic, and it works. And if two people can't break each other, one of them will pay up if they don't want to.
They just want to stand there forever. Wow, I had no idea like the grudge matches involved with people hating each other, and like the kind of collusion where people will just avoid one another. I had no idea that played a part in Abyssal PvP or anything in the Abyss, but it makes total sense because it's EVE Online, right?
Yeah, exactly. These guys, they collude with each other to make sure they don't run into each other. They specifically hunt other people. There's a dynamic to it, and it's funny watching it play out and watching how things work.
A lot of interesting complexity.
Yeah, that a couple of the guys are in test, and test, they all have an agreement where they don't pot each other. And I guess there's one guy in test that actually potted another guy in test, and that was a whole ordeal or something. But
that's actually a mechanic I'd like to elucidate for the viewers. The rules of Abyss PvP room of the proving ground is that you have 30 minutes, and then both ships and pods are destroyed. The gate to exit unlocks when a ship dies, not when a pod dies. So once you defeat your enemy's ship, you can choose to let their pod go, or you can destroy it before it can get to the gate and escape.
And once one ship dies, also the 30-minute timer ends. Is that correct?
No, the 30-minute timer still goes on. So if you kill someone and you're at 29 minutes and 45 seconds and you can't get back to that gate in time, even though you killed them, your ship is gone. I watched the
even if you activate it on the second, right?
Yeah. So there's a bug in Abyss where if you are in the transit tunnel between rooms when the timer expires, this works for the PvE and the PvP, then the ship kill mechanism fails.
That sucks.
Yeah,
I've heard happening one time ever. It's literally the precise moment when the ship kill goes off. You have to be in the tunnel.
They probably didn't test that part. I do want to point out that there's an agreement between the player and the game that if you get to the point and you do the thing that they tell you by the time limit, you're supposed to receive the reward. That's game design. Just saying.
Yeah, it's crazy seeing this timer play out.
All right.
Should we go into news?
Let's briefly go to the news segment because we're running low on time. Elise, why don't you take us through some of the news here?
All right, so you were there yesterday. I wasn't, but there was a big fight in X-Tac 7 in Pure Blind. Pandemic Horde had just kind of deployed to the area with not a full deployment, but like a content deployment. And they ran into some Imperium forces there. It was over a pause of all things. What happened there? Just briefly.
Well, it escalated up over time. It started with some subcaps engaging with each other, and then the Pandemic Horde side dropped a few dreads. They carefully measured, sort of not enough to scare anybody off, but enough to be worth an escalation, and sort of played one of their cards and said, "Do you want to keep playing?"
Yeah, they did a nice little escalation, kind of like just slow ramping up, right? It was a few carriers and some dreads, and then some more dreads and then some more dreads, and it's kind of like back and forth, right? It was good.
And I was getting pings on the Imperium side saying, "Hey, do you have a dread pilot ready? Join this fleet. Hey, we're still taking new dread pilots. The last group's reshipping. You ready?" And there was usually those are the kind of pings that people are like, "Oh, hell yeah. It's not even my dread and I get to play. Oh yeah." And people are reasonably aware that the current gameplay in EVE, after Surgical Strike, dreadnoughts are a lot of fun right now. So that's a sell. So then more dreads get at it, and then more dreads get at it. And then what did Init do?
Well, I was right near the end of the fight. Like the fight was pretty much wrapping up at that particular point, but Init saw its understandable to basically drop their super cap group. So brought in supers and titans at the end, but essentially just to clean up.
And then I was in a subcap fleet that arrived at about just right after the super caps did. We didn't realize it would take too long. Yeah, but we had a great time.
Yeah. Well, like, to be fair, like any sort of cinematic kind of viewpoint of a really cool kind of cap brawl, like you have to have those doomsdays going off at some point, like to just round off the beauty of a cap fight, right? That's at least how I see it.
I do want to take a moment to talk about Surgical Strike for a moment. It has been 19 days since we had it, roughly speaking. And I did an analysis. I'm looking quickly for where that analysis is. But in the 19 days since Surgical Strike, with, again, the tank, the defenses of all these ships being brought down, we've lost 45 Nixes. No, I'm sorry, 45 supercarriers, not all Nixes, but mostly, and 7 Titans. So 45 and 7 have died. In the previous 19 days, which would have been March 27th through April 15th or something like that, we lost 48 supercarriers and 2 Titans. So supercarrier losses went down, even though the tank they're much more vulnerable. And in Titan, deaths went up from 2 to 7 in those 2 periods of. Those are statistically speaking, those are very small sample sets. Not really fair to do a huge trend analysis based on those samples. But in general, I think we can say that Titans are dying faster and supercarriers are not, despite their vulnerability. And I think I would ascribe that to fewer of them being actually out in space at the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of groups, especially in the Imperium, have said, "Hey, let's not rat in the supers. It's not worth it anymore. Or if you do so at your own danger." So there's probably few of them in space. I've personally noticed, like, since Surgical Strike, a huge uptick in like 20 to 100 man roaming fleets that have been happening all over the place. It seems like there's just more PvP everywhere and people trying to like crack the code. I know Test Alliance had a really weird fleet doctrine the other day with they had Logi Ikaterses and Demoses, and I've seen dark-sided Nagas and 100 MNAB Tengus, like heavy missile Tengus. They're coming back. So everyone's still trying to kind of figure out what works and what doesn't in this patch. And it's one of those things that, previously we would have had this patch a month ago or a month before it was announced, and we could have like dissected it, completely figured it out before it hit live. But they gave us like a few days notice or a day notice or something very short. We do have a similar patch coming out called Forsaken Fortress, I think, which comes out toward the end of the month, the end of May. So we covered it on previous shows, and you should just look at the patch notes for it because the implications are pretty important for what goes on in EVE. Also, one of the big things that happened is the CSM election cycle has kind of opened up. We've seen a lot of people saying, a lot of current CSMs and comments saying, "Hey, we're not going to do it again. It was fun. We had a great time, but we're going to open it up to new people." Torvald, you're running for the CSM, right?
Yes, I am. I'm running for CSM this year.
Anyone else on this panel?
I am not running for CSM.
I'm not eligible.
I'm not crazy like Torvald.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jack myself through this one.
Well, that is pretty cool. You have a lot of passion behind it, so that's going to be an interesting thing. Also, today and yesterday, there was a little bit of server instability that CCB mentioned on their EVE status Twitter thing. I'm not quite sure what's happening with that. But if you're having issues logging in, you're not the only one. Don't panic. I always panic. Something like that. I will say that during this thing, especially since we're talking about in the scope of the Abyss, maybe take your cheaper Abyss fit going into the Abyss. Because if I'm not wrong, if you disconnect in the Abyss, you just totally die instantly, right?
Unless you're very lucky, you're probably going to die. The good news is that whenever there's these known server stability issues, CCP is very, very, very easy on the reimbursements. You pretty much just have to submit, you'll get it back. Obviously, that's annoying, and it's not, a great solution, but they're not necessarily screwing us over entirely.
On the other hand, we had to cancel a Locust fleet today, so we just lost a buttload of 60-day valuable fracks that CCP is not going to update, and it's worth a lot of ISK. Anyway.
Yeah, it's unfortunate when this stuff happens. I mean, people want to get mad and yell at CCP. I see it all over Reddit, man. It's like they don't want this to happen. They're not trying to let it happen, but it happens, and you just got to be smart about it. Take it, let it happen, and understand that they're going to, a lot of people say they won't reimburse my ship. They're not answering. They're got a lot of stuff happening. So I imagine, just give them time and all that, but just be smart about it. Especially during times like these. We had that back in January, and you know what's going on. You know what you're risking. So.
Yeah.
Also, in terms of Eve news, it's Eve's 17th birthday on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. So I think CCP, maybe this was a fever dream or something from me being cooped up too long, but I think that they're doing an in-game event with item drops and stuff. Actually, I know that for a fact. There's going to be like an in-game event where you can take a battle cruiser into certain event sites, and you kind of help Concord and fight the Triglavian menace. So that's coming, I believe, on Tuesday or Wednesday. I know the official birthday is on Wednesday. That's accompanied by like a login reward set as well. So make sure to log in. It's different from the login rewards that are there now, I think. Where you get like the boosters that nobody is seeming to use. So keep an eye on that coming this week.
And it was John Bellicose Day on April 29th.
That is absolutely true.
His life. Yeah.
And that's not just a celebration of the life of John Bellicose, who's one of the guys who's named for the event. Like was one of the guys who unfortunately lost his life. But it's a celebration for all people who tragically have lost their life in various different circumstances, right?
And so the honoring is in the form of lighting Sinos, which is kind of like a candlelight vigil. It's the Eve version of a candlelight vigil that happened in GETAC 8, the Brave Newbies staging system. They aptly renamed their Keep Star to the Lichten Condor Memorial Keep Star, who also passed last week. So that happened. It's always great to see Eve people celebrating one another. And John Bellicose, the name kind of sticks out. If you've ever been to an Eve meet, you've probably met his mom, who goes by the in-game character Mom Bellicose. And I think she's been to every Vegas, and she's a wonderful lady. And she always brings cookies. She brings like 500 cookies. Absolutely knows how to get to Eve players' hearts, I guess. But she has left a pretty indelible impact on the community. There's also an Eve Pulse video, which you should absolutely check out, even if you don't normally check them out, because it has the president of Iceland giving a little speech, like a little shout out to Eve Online. It's not a little shout out; it's like a 7-minute shout out to Eve Online or something. And I don't know any other game where they can get the president of the country to come in and just say some words like, "Yo, let's get the president to come and just say what up to these Eve players." So that is really cool. You deserve to, you owe it to yourself to check it out.
Amen.
Also, watch the Pulse videos if you enjoy watching CCP convict die repeatedly.
He has become the Kenny of the Pulse videos.
Exactly.
Oh, and one final piece of news that probably went under the radar for a lot of people, but CCP in the Pulse video also announced that the mobile companion app that they're releasing or have released, you will be able to edit and put up Jita sell orders for plexes on the Jita market. So far, it's only the Jita 4.4 market and only plexes, but you'll be able to edit your orders and set new ones and just buy and even sell plex from your phone without even logging in, which is pretty wild.
Nice.
And the implications are also quite wild.
I heard a rumor about space hobos. Have you heard anything about that one?
I did, actually. The Intergalactic Space Hobos, which is one of the most fun alliances, in just name only at least, have announced that they are closing down. I don't know much more about it, but these guys have been around for obviously not since the start of the game, but they've been making an impact in the last 4 or 5 years. Their alliance ticker is a little dumpster, which always brings me joy to see in space. But yeah, I think they mostly do wormhole stuff, if I'm not mistaken, and they kind of sneak out of their wormhole and do stuff in low sec as well.
One little programming note, just real quickly. One little programming note is that if you guys have ever seen our videos on YouTube, essentially, a lot of the videos there are pretty lengthy. They can be a little bit awkward in terms of trying to find the various different sections that you might want to to listen to us talking about. What we're kind of implementing on that front is YouTube has a chapters feature that allows us to break up videos into various different chapters. Allows you to kind of see where the various different parts of the video is. And we're kind of implementing this a little bit more on our videos on YouTube. So if you want to go over to YouTube and have a look at that, then we'll be slowly implementing them on our most recent videos and then progressively backwards, I think.
Nice.
So I'll do a real quick view of that. But
they also CCP also announced that the Abyss skill point event, they extended it by a few days because there was, I think, some server instability, so they extended it. Obviously, you should go ahead and get your free skill points by just going to the Abyss and checking it out. But if you're super intimidated, Torvald, where can you go to find a group of players that can kind of help you out?
So there's an in-game community, in-game channel called Abyssal Lurkers, full of a lot of helpful resources and the message of the day, as well as hundreds of people there to help answer any questions. The Abyss being the nature of the beast, it's one of those things that it really helps to chat with people and get help rather than just read or watch videos. So that is a community open to everybody, all kinds of people from all different walks of life in Eve there. And if you have a question about the Abyss, there's someone in there that can answer it, I promise you. So, you're not taking this alone. There are people there that can help you. There are people in there who will take you in a frigate into the Abyss and guide you through it to teach you.
So if you want to do one of those 3 frigate things, you can find partners there.
Yeah, there's always
Nice.
people looking. There's all kinds of information there. So get in there, chat with people. If you're an expert that can help the new bros, also get in there so you can be the one answering questions.
nice.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Fonsui. Thank you, Torvald. This has been great fun. Thank you to McLeod and Elise for the support today, as always. And thank you, audience, for joining us for another conversation about spaceships. You can also enjoy our daily Today in Eve online show, 1500 UTC, Monday through Friday, hosted by Matterall. You can, again, watch more of our videos on demand at youtube.com/talkinginstations. Thank you to the hard work you guys are putting into reorganizing them so it's easier to find subjects you're interested in. Please join the conversation on our Talking in Stations Discord. There should be a link somewhere nearby that will let you join that and come in and say hi to us. We generally jump into the public channel after each show and kibitz with people so you can ask more questions if you have one. Big thanks to our supporters on Patreon, YouTube, and Twitch TV who make this happen. And that's all for this episode. Fly well.